Welcome to Two Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. My name is Pete, and I'm your host of Two Deep, along with my boy Sam Jesse here. I got him in the camera. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll also notice we have a third co-host today, and that is from Tales of the TerrorDome podcast, Dan. Dan the man, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, you've had me on your podcast a couple times, and I have to repay the favor. Plus, you do a really good job with it. So I think you'll be a big value add to this episode. We're going to cover a lot of different aspects, including the Super Bowl. Not too much on that, just a little bit of reaction, coaching carousel, the two early top 25 rankings I want to talk about with you guys from 247, and of course, our basketball teams. But first, Sam, why don't you give us a cheers?
Well, like you said, last night was the Super Bowl. Dan and myself, we won some bets, lost some bets, but that's okay. So the first part of this cheers is to a phenomenal 2023 football season for both college and pro. A lot of fun games, some great storylines. So cheers to that.
Cheers.
And a second cheers to pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training today. The guards are terrible, but we keep the faith.
The guards. Oh, man. Cheers to that. Spring is starting to sprung.
Spring has sprung.
Go Cubs, go, baby.
My, how the turntables have turned. I did actually go to a Cubs spring training game out in Arizona a couple years ago, and it was awesome. The stadium was so cool. The weather was perfect. Had a blast. I just learned that you were a Cubs fan. I think you mentioned it on one of your recent shows, Dan.
Yeah. So my mom, she moved to Florida, and she's like, we're outside St. Pete and Tampa. So there's all sorts of spring training down there. But I was like, you should have went to Arizona. Because then I could have just free room and board, go watch the Cubs as much as I want. But, some people are selfish. Some people are selfless.
I hear that. So did the Super Bowl winner for you guys turn out to be what you were expecting? I thought the Chiefs were going to win the game. I wanted the 49ers to win just because I'm kind of tired of the Mahomes, Kelsey saga type stuff. But they still came out on top. And when you have the better coach and the better quarterback, I guess that's normally how it goes.
It's crazy. Like the 49ers played so much better, but they just couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And you can't beat Patrick Mahomes with 3 points.
Yeah.
And I mean, he is, I would say in my lifetime, he and LeBron James, maybe Steph Curry are like the most inevitable athletes of all time. Like there is no big moment that they don't show up in. And well, I guess LeBron definitely has had some big moments that he didn't show up in, but for the most part,
yeah.
Like, I mean, the guy just he didn't play well, and he passed for like 330 yards.
Right.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. They deserve it. They deserve it. Like I think in terms of advanced stats and the DVOA, I don't know if people know that, but they had the hardest road to a Super Bowl of any team in NFL history.
Wait, for real?
Team. Yeah.
In the playoffs.
Think about who they had to play. They played the Dolphins.
Yeah.
They played the Ravens. They played
Buffalo.
The Bills.
Yeah.
Okay. Ravens and Bills on the road. And then they played the Niners.
Yeah. And the Niners had a very good regular season and then not the strongest playoffs. Like they weren't looking like the same team to me in the playoffs that they were for a large portion of the regular season, but they were a good team with a lot of high caliber players. Dan, did it go like you expected? Were you thinking Mahomes is going to pull it out?
As a Broncos fan, I've seen this a lot. Yeah. So when the Niners basically sold for the first 20 minutes of the game, I kind of had a feeling. I was like, you know what? It's probably gonna piss me off. Like,
yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what happened, man. It seems like every time Kyle Shanahan gets a lead, he wants to put the foot on the gas, but the foot on the gas is not having your quarterback who's capable of winning a championship out-duel the best quarterback in football. Like Christian McCaffrey was he was balling, sort of. I mean, he had the fumble, which cost him points, but overall, I felt like there could have been more balance to it. It was almost they completely went away from the run game. And then when they came back to it, Kansas City had kind of figured it out. Yeah. And I feel like Dre Greenlaw getting hurt really made a bigger difference than people think.
Also, Debo and George Kittle being hurt, like
Yeah.
that just hurt it because then it was basically just Christian McCaffrey, and then they could just kind of box cover Ayuk. That's why Juwan Jennings had such a good game, is because everyone was focused on Ayuk in the secondary. I Yeah, kind of an unfortunate game for the Niners, but also the Chiefs deserved every bit of this Super Bowl.
Dude, it's crazy to do it like as many times as they've done it in a row. And you see it in the regular season that maybe revving it back up for the regular season, especially with the deficiencies at wide receiver that they had, is challenging. But once they got in the playoffs, that was like a completely different team, focused and ready, and they took it to them and got another one. Well, Sam and I had an exchange on Twitter last night just from some of the extracurriculars of the game. We had Usher halftime show, sweating like a pig up there, but he did his thing, had his shirt off, still looks good at his advanced age, and brought us some hits. Ludacris came out, but there was a comment in there where I had tweeted like, "Oh, Reba's looking good," and I put it out on Twitter, and Sam appropriately bonked me. But I said to him, I had like, I don't know, 6 or 7 IPAs at that point. Even like early in the game, I was out with my buddies in Arlington all day. And I was like, I think I was trying to text my wife that because she's a big Reba fan. And she does look good for her age, but
no, don't sweat it. Reba looked good. Reba looked good up there. Huge year for the icons of female country music, with Dolly Parton with the Cowboys game, Reba singing the national anthem.
Yeah. Yeah, that Dolly outfit got a lot of commentary when that happened earlier in the year. Let's talk a little bit about this coaching carousel. Sam, we mentioned Bill O'Brien as a name for Boston College, and that happened. So his 2-week stint at Ohio State is done. Ohio State legend Bill O'Brien. But I think that's a really good fit for BC. Dan, did you have any reaction to that? Do you think that's a nice get for BC?
I mean, I felt like it's probably the best they were going to do.
Yeah.
I don't feel one way or another about Bill O'Brien. I do think he's going to springboard if he has a couple good years. There's going to be another job. He's going to take it. That's just the reality of Boston College.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But I mean, sure. You know
what's funny about that is, to fill his shoes, Chip Kelly comes over from UCLA to be the offensive coordinator. And Bill O'Brien kind of left that same very cushy gig, who like you're going to have all those athletes to work with. It's kind of perfect for the quarterback that he has in Will Howard and the running game they're going to have. And Bill O'Brien decides to do the exact opposite and go to a very difficult head coaching challenge at BC. It's kind of funny to see those two mentalities. And I know people say that like Chip was a lame duck at UCLA. Like they were probably going to fire him regardless this upcoming season. And it was a tough schedule for him. But Sam, what do you think? Isn't that kind of weird how like Bill O'Brien chooses the challenge and Chip Kelly runs from the challenge?
Well, in the same way that Hafley was on the hot seat at Boston College and things didn't look good. I mean, Chip Kelly was on the hot seat big time at UCLA. Like they wanted him out of there. The athletic department just couldn't afford to fire him because of his contract. So he kind of needed to get out of there. It was going to be tougher playing in the Big Ten. He just lost his star quarterback recruit. Like things were not going well for Chip Kelly. So I see that move for him from UCLA to Ohio State. He's also kind of a little bit more up there in age than most people think. So if he doesn't want to mess around with trying to rebuild this program and rebuild his image at a school that is kind of a dumpster fire financially in the athletic department, good for him. Go be the OC at Ohio State. As for Bill O'Brien going to Boston College, I think he just wanted to be the head coach somewhere, and it doesn't come around all the time. I think it's a great hire for Boston College simply because of the aura that it brings. An NFL guy, coached at Penn State, has coached at Alabama. He's a well-respected offensive coach. He's just not a well-respected roster manager. So I'm curious to see how that goes with a program that you need to develop guys at. But like Dan said, correct, I don't think he's going to be there that long.
Yeah.
So for Boston College, the good news, and I was chatting with AJ Black, who does Eagles Insider, Locked On BC, awesome guy. He was saying, look, this is a fundraising juggernaut. You get a lot of interest in the program nationally. Donors are going to be involved in this. So I think for BC, it's a little bit of a like an electric factory happening up there. They're a little excited for it. I don't think they're going to be very good team under Bill O'Brien. I think they're going to probably be 6-7 wins a year, maybe a little bit better in year 3 or 4, but at least they'll have some national media attention that they wouldn't have had with Jeff Hafley. Like it wasn't going to get any better with Hafley. We talked about that in the last pod.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it's kind of funny how that can work too. Like he was a guy when there was rumors that Tech was going to hire Bill O'Brien. Like that hit the message boards when we were looking for a coach, and people like were not happy. Like we know. Go ahead, Dave.
I would have been okay with it. Actually, I would have been okay with it. I think
we
could have done worse.
Yeah,
we could have done worse. I mean, but I think one thing with Bill O'Brien too is he is really respected for his X's and O's, and then everyone dislikes him for every other part of the coaching. And I don't think it's because he's like Bill O'Brien, the person. It just seems to be like he's not good at being a general manager. Like we saw the debacle with the Texans, even with Alabama. Like we saw the debacle with that wide receiver room where he took in all their talent and then like didn't build that wide receiver room up at all. He somehow still managed to get Bryce Young to be the number 1 overall pick. But
yes
so I think there's a lot of red flags with Bill O'Brien. Like unless he's given Deshaun Watson or unless he's given Bryce Young, to be determined. But he did do a good job at Penn State under unreasonably difficult expectations and circumstances.
Absolutely. But the game has changed quite a bit.
The game has changed
at Penn State. And so we'll see if he does a good job. I do think it's about as good as they could do. And it does give that donor excitement that BC desperately needs and to get back engaged on the football side of things. Because Hafley's tenure, while it started off hot and like people were excited about him, it quickly went the other way.
Another tidbit, if you remember where Penn State got him from, him going back to Boston, him going to Boston College makes a little sense.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He's with the Patriots.
That's right. That's right.
So it's kind of like home. So I guess if he was going to he was like, oh, yeah, Boston College, kind of a terrible spot to be in. But at the same time, I don't know. He's kind of home. So
that makes, you know what, Dan, that actually gives me a little bit more clarity on my first question about the Chip and the Bob opposite thing there. But I also framed it like that with Chip because I just don't like Chip Kelly. He cut Deshaun Jackson. He traded Shady in his prime. He ran the Eagles into the ground. And the very next coach that came in after him and rectified it won us a Super Bowl. The coach before him was Andy Reid, who took us to Super Bowl. And the 2 coaches that surrounded him in San Fran took the teams to Super Bowls. So I don't know how good of a coach Chip Kelly is anymore. And he ran from his situation to a much better situation. Because if he ever wants to be a head coach in the NFL, the best place he can be is Ohio State offensive coordinator for next year, because that team is loaded up and they have a really good shot to win the Natty.
Yeah, they paid for it for sure.
No doubt.
I'll tell you, I told you this, Pete, in the chat. I was truly, truly happy when Chip Kelly was running the quack attack at Oregon. Dennis Dixon and those guys. That was a beautiful, beautiful time in college football.
It was.
I agree.
And he was great. He was ahead of his time in what he did with up-tempo stuff. He did a lot of innovative things in the way he chose his athletes to fill out his roster, and it worked. And we'll see. And he did okay at UCLA. He never won 10 games, and I never won the Pac-12 or anything. But we'll see what he does at Ohio State, because I think Ohio State is going to be really damn good next year. We added a football staff member this week, you guys. I don't know if you realize that, but we added Brandon Hall, and he's kind of a long title. He's the Executive Associate AD and the Athletics Chief Financial Officer. He comes over from Clemson. So he is Virginia Tech's CFO. And this role, I guess, is to take a little bit off of Witt's plate for maybe contract negotiations and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any inside information at all. But in this new age of college football, that's probably your second most important position. I would say that and your head coach.
Yeah.
Just seems like Virginia Tech is going to need to get really creative and really smart with financials in the near future. I don't.
If we remain in the ACC under this contract, yes, that's
in which Clemson was. I don't know how much he had to do with it. I think they had the whole IPTE thing they had for a while, but Clemson kind of became a, fiscal juggernaut kind of out of nowhere. So he might have a little bit of that magic with him.
And it seemed, I think he's a Christiansburg guy too. So he kind of returns to the New River Valley, was the way the Hokie Sports tweet came out. Dan, that sounds like a guy you might have to get on your show at some point.
Might have to. Maybe he'll start a church like Dabo.
That's right.
And fund us.
That's right. Well, let's get to something fun here, man. The 247 way too early top 25 came out today. That hit the Twitter or X, I should say. And VT was in the top 25. And I'm going to put it up on the screen for you guys. And there's a couple things that I noticed about this. One, you can see my note right on the screen. 6 ACC teams are ranked. You have Miami at number 12. That's the highest. So we don't have any top 10 teams, but 6 total teams from 12 to 23. Miami, Clemson at 15, Florida State at 18, Louisville at 20, NC State at 21, and Virginia Tech comes in at number 23. And I do think that's pretty spot on for all of those teams. It's kind of surprising to see Miami as the first team in the ACC. What are your thoughts on that, Sam?
Ooh, should I start it towards the top or start towards where Virginia Tech is?
You can go however you feel, man.
Okay, the first lineup there. Yeah, that makes sense. Ole Miss is going to be really good. Oregon's going to be really good. Texas, Texas lost a lot. They lost almost 78% of their offensive production or something like that. So I think people are thinking Arch Manning can play quarterback at the same time as Quinn Ewers. Can't do that. Georgia and Ohio State are on a collision course. The second line there, Bama and Michigan, they lose a lot. Coaching turnovers, those are big question marks, but I think their rosters are just so stacked. Missouri's going to be good. They do lose a lot on defense. Notre Dame is going to be better. I think Riley Leonard's a better quarterback than Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman, massive system quarterback, apparently. Penn State's Penn State. Tennessee, whatever. Miami, I mean...
Why do you think Miami shoots to the top of the ACC rankings for 247?
I mean, their entire offensive and defensive line should play in the NFL. Like how they should be.
Yeah.
Cam Ward is okay, but he can also suck.
He was good. Obviously he's a good quarterback. He had a lot of teams hunting him this season, this offseason, but I don't think he's like the second coming or anything like this. I think he's going to be solid, and Mario is building out those lines, and that's what he does. That's what he was known for at Oregon. And what can hold Miami back, though, is everything that Mario does during the season. In the offseason, Mario is a killer. He recruits. He can get everyone like in the right mind frame and ready to go. But on game day, we have seen him screw up countless times at multiple locations.
And it's not like they lose to good teams. I mean, they lose to decent to bad teams every year. Mm-hmm. So it's really weird. LSU and Oklahoma, again, I think there's just so much talent on those rosters. Oklahoma should be a little bit better defensively in year 3 of Venables. LSU, they're just going to be stupid talented like they always are. Clemson's defense should get better. Utah is a sleeper playoff pick. I know I'm a big Utes guy, but they have so much back from injury. They're going to look really good. And then after that, 18 through 24, you could put those teams in anywhere. I think
Washington coming in at 25, as a complete unknown.
There's no way.
No one knows anything.
I don't know if they're going to make a bowl game. I'm going to be straight up. I don't know if they're going to make a bowl game. Florida State could be higher.
But they're a huge unknown too. I mean, their team's getting kind of overhauled.
Yeah, but they just brought in a bunch of Alabama guys too.
That's true.
Louisville has a completely new roster again. Yeah, I mean, that 18 through 24, you could even throw in a team like Boise State. Tulane did really well in the portal this year and retained some guys. So,
yeah, it's funny because Louisville, again, heavy hitters in the portal, not many high school recruits in their class coming in. And we are the exact opposite, right? We are bringing back all of our studs and not many high school guys. And we're very, very close. I'm very curious how Brahms year 2 goes there, because clearly he had a very nice year 1. But with how many new guys he's bringing in yet again, it's not a redo of year 1 because his system's in place and whatnot. But there could be some bumps in the road for Louisville. And so I don't know. I wasn't a believer last year, and I kind of got that thrown in my face when they made the ACC title game. But yeah, that the last few rankings there are kind of crazy, and they could go any which way. Dan, what's your reaction to us being at number 23? Do you feel like that's right? Should we be higher or not ranked or what?
I wouldn't say we should be higher. We haven't proven that we should be yet. I mean, we finished last year very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
We returned so many people, so I understand. Hopefully, it doesn't diminish the chip on the shoulder. Keeps it strong. 23 feels. If we were going to be ranked, it feels appropriate. I'll be honest. Like I mean, it'd be nice to be ranked again. To be honest,
Exactly.
I didn't expect to be, but we have become a media darling. It seems that people are in love with the Virginia Tech.
It's happening quick, right?
Reemergence, yeah.
And people,
it's just
I
nice
think
to be included.
It is, and this is not the AP.
Yeah.
This is just one publication, and they're top early. I can't talk, but you got the idea. Early top 25, and we'll see what happens when the AP poll comes up. And some people are like, I don't want to be ranked, like Dan just said, because you want that chip on the shoulder. You want guys to like be motivated. Like, hey, we should be ranked. Let's go out and kick Vanderbilt's butt, whatever. But some of that stuff's overblown. Ultimately, you want your team to be ranked. Having your team ranked in the AP, you're in more articles. You can use it in recruiting the following year. We were ranked for 5 weeks last year. Like Dabo used to say that crap all the time. Like we've been ranked for 200 straight weeks or whatever they were. So yes, that's what we want. And hopefully when the AP comes out, we do come in. And I think that's right. Like us and NC State, I think that's where they're going to be. And our two teams are similar. Like we're very similar teams next year. And I think we're going to be better than NC State, but we didn't show it on the field this past year.
I also think that even no matter where we're ranked or if we're ranked, that Brent Pry does a good job of not letting the team get too soaked into it, whether it be positive or negative. So I feel like we'll stay locked in.
Yeah. Did you guys notice that of the top 10 teams that they're all SEC, Big Ten, and Notre Dame?
Notre Dame's just getting the Notre Dame.
Look at the next line.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Mizzou's going to be good, dude. I think Drinkwitz, or whatever his name is good. I think he's a good coach. So I guess we'll see. And as far as Texas goes, I mean, they lost a lot offensively, but if I trust anybody to reload on offense, it's Sark. I don't know about the whole overall production of Texas, but offensively, I feel like they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Well, that was fun from a little bit of a national perspective there. Talk a little bit about the Hokies ranking and getting a little bit more cred on the national scene going into this upcoming year. But I want to talk about the recruiting that just happened because National Signing Day was on Wednesday last week. Not that anyone cares because we didn't really bring in anybody new other than those PWOs me and Sam talked about on the last show. But as soon as that was over, we started awaiting these commitments for 2025. And we got 2 of them on Friday. Athlete/wide receiver Jaden Anderson committed, and cornerback Knowledge Harrell committed. Knowledge spelled a way that I could have never envisioned it being spelled, but it's a pretty cool name. And these guys are 87. I think Jaden has a ranking in the composite, and he's about number 500 overall in the country. So he's a very good recruit. That was from Fontel Mines, brought him in. Auburn offer, Florida offer. I'm going off his 247 list. Georgia offer, Miami, Duke, BC, West Virginia, South Carolina. I mean, if you got that Georgia offer sitting there, I was checking, I was like, does that say yes next to the offer? And it did. That's a huge pickup. Sam, what did you think about bringing in him and Harrell, who's an 86 on 247, but doesn't have a ranking yet?
It's kind of crazy that like Green Run High School has 3 Virginia Tech, like good Virginia Tech recruits. Green Run is historically not a very good football program. And it's one of the smaller districts down here in Virginia Beach. It's really only like 2 big neighborhoods that feed into one high school. So it's kind of crazy that in 2 classes, you're going to get 3 players from there. But they've been
because Keelan Adams is also from Green Run. For those that don't know, yes,
yeah, 4-star wide receiver Keelan Adams. I mean, it's great to be setting up that pipeline. I mean, they feel like this is a school that's going to continue to have good athletes and guys who are Virginia Tech caliber players, and they're developing that relationship. And I think that's great. On the other hand, it is early February of 2024, and we have over a year until these guys will be even maybe practicing. So in this day and age, for me, I take a social media commitment as meaning their number one right now is Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against the athletes. It's just kind of the reality of high school recruiting. So good for Virginia Tech that they have some guys in the boat, but we haven't left the dock yet whatsoever.
Yeah, and I would say that having a friend in Keelan Adams, I assume that they're at least a little bit friendly if they were teammates, they've seen his recruitment process and him choose Virginia Tech. As long as he enjoys his year this upcoming year, like those guys should follow. Dan, I think you've struck up a friendship with Keelan's father over the past year or whatever. Has he ever mentioned any of these other kids coming in, and if he feels like they'll be good Hokies?
He's pretty excited about him.
Yeah.
He's Jay. He he was Keelan's counterpart last year, and their quarterback at Green Run isn't the best. I don't think. I think there were some chemistry issues, but I mean Jaden or whatever still excelled. I mean he had 15 tutties.
Yeah, he was
1,200 yards, and that's with Keelan on the other side. So great athlete. And then Knowledge is also. I mean, he was excited about both of them. We didn't talk about it until after they committed. I mean, even if you had like an inkling, like he's like, man,
can't say anything.
It's their moment. It's their moment. I wasn't even going to pry. I just, no pun intended, but like, I just, but yeah, he's excited about them. He thinks they're great kids, which would be in line with what Tech's been recruiting as far as like character goes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what Pry's big on. He's big on getting those team captains and guys that have, good heads on their shoulders. What were you going to say, Sam?
They have really cool uniforms. That's it.
Those Green Run uniforms are nice. Yeah,
they're pretty sick. Nice. They're pretty sick.
I'm a fan of football teams with green in them, so I like that.
Yeah, my high school was green.
Let's move to women's hoops, and I just to finish the thought on the 2025 class. Yes, it is far away, but it is nice to see us get going in this cycle early and get some guys, because before we know it, it's going to be June, and so you got to start getting your class going. We have 4 kids in this class now. They all seem like definitely top 1,000 kids when it's all said and done, which I know that might sound like a big number, but like when Fuente was here, we didn't always get top 1,000 kids like this, and getting a number 500 and Fontel Mines being the guy for, I think Jones was the secondary recruiter on Knowledge, but Fontel Mines was involved with both of these kids, and that guy just continues to do work. Women's hoops, guys. Huge win last week on Thursday. We beat NC State, and we moved up to number 12 in this week's AP poll. They were number 3 last week. So this week, NC State drops to number 6, and we only move up to number 12. I want to go back to that ranking in a minute after we just talk about the game for a second. We came out on fire in that third quarter because it was a very tight game down in Raleigh. And then we got up by about 10 and just kept them at an arm's length. I think we hit 5 threes in the third quarter. Both Kitley and Amore had double-doubles. Georgia was 2 rebounds away from a triple-double. And there were 4 Hokies in double figures. So that game, I was shocked we were able to go down there and just like really take it to them. Sam, did you get eyes on the game or just read about it afterwards?
I actually was able to watch it on the Peloton, which is a cool new feature that Peloton
has.
They
have YouTube TV on the Peloton
now. YouTube TV to it. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, first off, like I said, Reynolds Coliseum is awesome. It's such a cool place. We had 2 writers out there covering the game for us. Awesome environment. I mean, they at the beginning of the year, Pete, I think like the first podcast I did this year with you, I was saying like, yeah, it doesn't seem like they have that big game mentality this year. Like the LSU game, the Iowa game, they just kind of seemed frazzled. They seemed a little bit slower. That is not the case anymore. Mm-hmm. Look at how they played, against, how they've played. I mean, Syracuse, Carolina.
It's been a tough schedule.
NC State twice. Like it's an insane schedule. They still got to play Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they feel like they're finding their groove right now. I will say, I think Kenny Brooks is going to think about maybe Georgia and Liz can take a seat for a few extra minutes in the next few games here because they're going to get a high seed in the tourney. They're going to be one of the top few seeds in the ACC. Liz looked like she went to war in the last game against Boston College. Like that was brutal. So
that was
making
that
sure,
game. Yeah, let's touch on that game quickly. I want to get some of Dan's reaction. They
yeah.
beat BAC on Sunday for their 7th win in a row. They did not shoot the ball particularly well, but they moved it well. They had 17 assists. We out-rebounded BC by quite a bit, but it was 50 points from Amor and Kitley. Like they carried us. King and Eck were not good. It was maybe their 2 individually worst games of the season. I don't know. Tough game from those girls, but our studs carried us. We got the win, and it was a classic letdown spot coming off that giant win against NC State. And even on a night that they didn't have it, they managed to just win the game. BC is not a good team. Whatever. They won the game. We are first place in the best conference in college basketball, women's college basketball. And so there are 5 teams in the top 20 from the ACC. And what annoys me, Dan, is that, we get 2 wins over NC State. They're still ranked 6 spots ahead of us. And I feel like if you are the best team in the first place in the ACC, like, that team should be in contention for a 1 seed. And right now, sitting at 12, I'm worried that they're not in that conversation.
Yeah, man. I need all I'm gonna say is number 5, number 33, hang the banners, build the statues. Regardless, special. I think all we're witnessing is insane. The way they've been filling up Castle. I've been beating that drum for a long time to get the crowds that the men were getting. I think I feel like if they go on a run, maybe we'll be able to. I would love to host again.
Yeah.
That was so much fun last year. But I think that Kenny did a good job of retooling kind of what we lost last year a little bit. I mean, Olivia is amazing, dude. Like her stats sometimes
she was grabbing boards. Yeah.
Yeah. She's just all over the place. All over the place. It's ridiculous. Like she reminds not Dennis Rodman, but like those 90s Bulls teams where he was just like Mr. Elbow Grease, like just like doing all the stuff that you like that doesn't get talked about. Like she's high energy all the time. Like I think Strock's gonna be awesome.
Yep.
And man, Kenny's just so cool, dude. Like
he is cool.
Yeah. Like the women's team, man, like there's something special about what they're doing.
And the engagement from our fans has been fantastic. Like, you were in Blacksburg this past weekend, right? Did you go to the game?
No, only because there would have been too short of a turnaround to get home for the Super Bowl.
Okay, I got you. Maybe you caught some of it on the radio or something or on the app, but that I did think they are really like, you have to soak in these last couple games, as you said, because their senior night's coming up. I think I got it written down here. They're playing the 25th against UNC. That's senior night in Blacksburg. But there's Duke at home on Thursday, then Louisville this weekend, and then we end with 2 games on the road. So it's 225 against UNC unless we end up hosting games, in the tournament. So if you're around or close to Blacksburg, make sure you try and go to these last couple women's games because we may never see anything like this again. And I'm just hoping we can get Georgia Amor back again.
I'll tell you what though, they have some recruits coming in.
Yeah,
like he's building a program. They have some in high like top 30, top 40 recruits in the country coming in next year. So he's building a program, man. Like he's not resting on having 2 superstars.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. And if we could get another year of Georgia and keep this run going, it would be fantastic. But let's talk a little bit about where they're at and how this season might play out, and then we'll do men's, and then we're going to get to some questions for Dan. They're 18th in the net right now, are the women. They actually dropped 2 spots after BC because BC is so bad. And there's a lot of teams jammed up at the top of the net rankings in the women's rankings. Like there's a lot of teams with like 3 losses or 2 losses. There's just so many good teams. And so getting a 1 seed, I think, is going to be challenging, as I said. But a 2 seed is very reasonable. If you think 8 teams are getting a 2 seed, at least a 2 or 1 seed, so we're not that far away being ranked number 12. And I think if you go out and you win the ACC tournament, and you've proved that you're the best regular season team in the ACC and ACC tournament team, we'll be in contention for a 1, but I don't think it necessarily matters whether it's a 1 or 2. What's your opinion on that, Sam?
You know, I think you want that one. There's an aura that comes around with being a 1 seed, and I think that was really helpful last year. I think what you don't want to happen is what happened a couple years ago, where they ended up playing like it was Florida Gulf Coast, who was egregiously seeded. They had only lost like 1 game and were the 12 seed or something. Like, you don't want that. So you want to avoid the potential of that happening, because it's very clear that in women's basketball, they can't rank or seed anybody very well. So I think you want to avoid that as much as possible. As far as like the AP ranking, like, doesn't really matter, right? Like, they're not the tournament committee. They don't do the ACC standings. Like, it's whatever, right? I think, though, there is that aura that comes along with the 1 seed that is special for a program. Like, to be a number 1 seed in back-to-back years is absurd. Like, even the best, like, prime Duke, Carolina, and Kentucky in men's game, like, didn't do that. I think like UConn women's does that stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's wild. I didn't actually think of it like that. I guess I was thinking more in terms of like the path, because a path for a 2 or a 1, like, you're going to meet that other team in your region. So like the path is similar for both of those teams. And if you play the 15, that's a pretty much a walkover. And so like, I just think like if we can get to that, I'd be happy. I don't want to be, if I can avoid a 3, that's what I'm trying to avoid, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, we saw last year, right? When the tournament started, the first few teams they played, it was not much of a competition.
No.
So I don't like playing a 13 versus 14 seed or something like that. I don't think really matters if you show up and play your game, and then you're gonna have to beat them. Like you said, you're gonna have to beat them anyway on a neutral court. So, that's whatever. I think if they play their game, they can go to another Final Four.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question about it. They have their matchup nightmares all over the court. They have elite scorers. They've gotten better at defense as the season goes on, much to the chagrin of the North Carolina coach. They've gotten much better on defense. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, hey, we're still hunting that natty, right? Like, we want that team natty. We've got the club natties. We've got cattle judging or whatever it is, but we need that team natty that is so elusive and people always talk about. So maybe the girls have it in them this year. Unless you have anything left on the women's team, Dan, I wanted to ask you about wrestling. Didn't you go down and see one of the matches this weekend?
I went to both, Friday at Moss, and then Saturday for senior day at Castle.
Now, do you have a connection to wrestling? You just like watching the sport, or what?
Well, I grew up a massive pro wrestling fan.
Okay.
And then as I got older, I had one of my best friends growing up. He was a stud in Virginia high school wrestling. So I used to go watch that, and I was kind of a casual. And then I feel like Mekhi Lewis really got me into wrestling. And then
one of our national champions.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when I was starting, TTD, Tales from the TerrorDome, I feel like I needed to set myself apart from what everybody else was doing. So I started covering everything. And I got kind of tight with the wrestling team. And so I just go support all the time. And I really do. It's a great thing to go watch. If you ever get a chance to go, it's a hell of an environment.
And that Moss Arts picture that they tweeted out was awesome. Like that venue is just so cool, and the view just looks incredible. So what's better, watching it there or in Castle, like when they do the Castle thing?
That's I don't know. I feel like in Castle, I'm not as afraid to yell as I am in Moss.
I got you.
Moss feels pretty like upscale, so I kind of just sit there. But if I want to let one fly in Castle, I don't feel so bad about it. But both, for what they do with Moss being their fundraising night, where they, it's the one night they charge, it's awesome.
Nice.
They had it at the baseball field last year too, and that was really cool.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It wasn't as cool as Moss Arts. I think what they're able to do with the lights and all in there is pretty cool, but it was kind of neat. Outdoor wrestling.
and they kicked butt against Duke on Friday night. I actually didn't even see what happened on Saturday. How'd that go, Dan?
It ended in an hour and a half. Jimmy Mullen actually beat his dude like 21-6 with like a minute and a half left in the first period. Like he just destroyed him the whole time.
That's awesome.
So I know we brought him in for football, but I think we're going to lose him to wrestling because which is fine. He should go wrestle. Like he's just a stud.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm
the
glad.
The coolest part
Yeah,
about Moss though was because it's Black History Month and they honored a lot of people from like Tex Past and like they would like highlight like during matches like or in between matches they would like show video packages like highlighting like certain individuals, and it was cool because Tech actually lost a wrestler in the early 2010s, I think. And I can't remember his name, but it was cool to see him honored and everything. They really did a good job. It was a great production.
I'm glad you got a chance to go to that, dude. That's awesome. Let's take a quick beer break and ad break, and then we'll come back for some men's hoops and some questions for Dan. 2 Deep Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Rhoback. You guys know and love Rhoback. It's the performance activewear that's designed for those that crave activity. It's the same polo company that brought you the VT polos that you see all around Blacksburg when you go down. There's the maroon one with the orange Virginias, the white one with the maroon Virginias, the Commonwealth, which is their, I think that's the Q-zip, with the two-tone maroon on there. Very cool stuff, but all of their stuff is awesome. They have so many fun polos for the golf course, and it is getting to be springtime, and you're going to need those golf polos. So make sure you head over to Rhoback, load up your cart, and use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your order. Yep, that's 2DEEPVT. If you've already ordered from there because you've been listening to our podcast for a while, that can be unfortunate until you realize that you could use your work email, or maybe you could use your wife's email or somebody else's email and get that 20% again.
You can just make a new email.
That's right.
You can make as many Gmails as you want.
So hit up Rhoback and load up that cart. Rhoback Crave Activity. For now, I need to know what you're drinking. Sam, what are you having over there?
All right. Well, I picked these up for the game last night, and I picked up 2. So we'll start with this one this week. It is from Smart Mouth Brewing Company, local here in Norfolk, Virginia. This is the Yeti Hugs Hazy India Pale Ale. It has a really cool can. I don't know if you're on YouTube, you can see it. It's got like a nice smiling Yeti. I'm a big Yeti Bigfoot fan, so love that. The beer itself is exactly what it sounds like. It's a hazy IPA. It's really drinkable. It's only 6% alcohol, so it's not as it's much more easy drinking than some of your other IPAs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a classic hazy IPA. If you like that, you'll like this one. So support a local brewery. Smart Mouth doesn't. There's no beer they have that's gonna like knock your socks off, be a 5 on Untapped, but everything they have is solid and really drinkable. So if you're in the Norfolk area, or if there's some at your local distributor, pick up some Smart Mouth. Pretty good stuff.
Very nice. Dan, are you drinking anything with us tonight?
Yeah, so I do like craft beer. I mean, I love my bourbon. I drink a lot of bourbon and ginger, but sometimes when it comes to your run-of-the-mill, everyday powerhouse domestic, there's only one king, baby, and their name is Miller Lite.
I love it.
I had quite a few double bourbons this past weekend, so I decided, I was going to keep it chill with a Miller Lite.
I like it, dude. And listen, if I'm drinking light beer, I don't really play favorites. If it's tailgate day, if it's Bud, it's Miller, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I respect the Miller Lite choice. Whenever we used to have Joe Lanza come on the podcast, he always drank PBR, which is the sponsor of the Sons of Saturday podcast. So
with a lime wedge.
Yes. Yeah. Joe was a big, I think they call that a redneck on vacation when you throw the lime into the PBR. That's what that is. But yeah, he was a big fan of that. I am drinking the King of Clouds Hazy IPA. This is a 3-notched, which is that Charlottesville?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's got a lion on there, kind of sitting in a throne. King of Clouds Hazy IPA, 7.5% alcohol, but it really doesn't drink like that. It's only got 10 IBUs, and I don't know if people are familiar with that or not, but IBUs essentially tell you how hoppy the beer is, more or less. And it is not hoppy. It drinks very light for being 7.5, like you probably wouldn't know. It's got more flavor than a session, so that might give you an idea, but it's pretty solid. And 3 Notch makes many, many good beers. I mean, they don't have too many ones that miss. So
Fact.
I'm a fan. This was actually part of a mixed pack. They had like the Minuteman was in there, the 40 something IPA, but all of them. There's a Sam Adams collaboration they actually did in that mix pack that I had yesterday. That was very, very good. But yeah, 3 Notch comes correct. And this one I like quite a bit. King of Clouds Hazy IPA. Let's talk men's hoops. This is not as fun. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this a little bit more quickly. They are 13-10, 5-7 in the conference, and 11th in the ACC right now is where they sit. We just lost our 3rd game in a row. This one coming at the hands of Notre Dame, a 7-16 Notre Dame team going into that game. And even after beating us, they are still tied for last in the ACC with Georgia Tech and Louisville. And this is, may I remind you, after our guys had a week off. And so I'm not trying to rake our kids over the coals. I'm not trying to have a referendum on Mike Young like they did on the Key Play last week with Marcolini's article, which I always love what Marcolini writes. He caught a little flack for calling into question Mike Young. But I think after this season is over, a lot of people will be having that conversation among their friends. Maybe not publicly, but what's going on here, Sam?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, as far as the Mike Young thing, he is 3 games under 500 in the ACC for his career. And it's a wins-loss business. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances around that record, considering he had like 1 player on the roster when he got here. So there's that. I will say that whether we liked it or not, there is going to be a ton of roster turnover from this year to next year, right? You have Long, Couture, Barron. They're not playing. They're out of eligibility. So it's 3 of your top 6 right there that are gone. Transfer portal. Virginia Tech basketball in the transfer portal is tough. Like we don't know what's going to happen. I think they do need a bit of a roster refresh. I think, and Ed Williams, who does the Hokie Hoops podcast, was on Saturday. We've talked about this. As awesome as Sean Padula and Hunter Couture are, and how much they've meant to this program, they eat up a lot of minutes that other guards don't get playing time for. And so you end up having 2 players who are really tired by this point in the season and played a lot of minutes. And then you have no one to really come in for them. And this is the 2nd straight year that specifically has been a problem. So I think, as well as the roster turnover, I think they probably need to reevaluate how they rotate players and how they build the roster, because the way they've done it the last 2 years, it just hasn't worked for high-level ACC basketball. And, it sucks, because I thought this team was going to be pretty good. Like we wrote in our preview article, this team should win 20+ games and make the tournament. Like they should be fun to watch and score a lot. And it hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked. The new pieces. And just one of those seasons.
I'm not sure how much you pay attention preseason or what, Dan, but what were your thoughts coming into the season? And has this been, like, can you pinpoint what's been going wrong? Did you think like, oh, Mike Young will just get it right at some point? Like what were your thoughts on the team?
I mean, how honest are we being?
You can be honest, as honest as you want, man.
Oh no, I don't. It's not really. I don't really have too much. I mean, I don't think he should be fired. But like, I mean, he got dealt a rough hand with the whole Rodney Rice thing.
The timing of that was not good.
But at the same time, I feel like maybe it might be time to look at the roster and change up maybe who they recruit.
Just go look at B-Fish. Just go look at B-Fish's Twitter.
Yeah, not necessarily that, but I feel like I don't know if you would have taken a more athletic group and put them around the long range assassin that is Hunter Couture, they probably would have had way more success. Mike Young's X's and O's are very good. I think he's a hell of a coach as far as that goes, but the Jimmies and Joes might need to change a little more than the X's and O's.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I said multiple times, a similar thing that just we need to get more athletic. I was a little, as soon as Rice left, I was like, I am worried about how athletic we are. I saw it, I think it was last year against NC State, and NC State wasn't even like a great team, but they had athletes and they just took us up and down the court, and it was brutal. And that my mind didn't change bringing in Tyler Nickel. Mekhi Long, I had some hope that he would be a bigger contributor. Seems like a great kid. I just thought we might get a little bit more out of him. Bieran has come on as of late, and he actually has been better. Poteet played okay against Notre Dame. Bieran continued to play decent against Notre Dame. Padula, though, he's been in a little bit of a slump. He's 4 of 12 this past game. MJ Collins was 1 of 6. Hunter had 18 points, but just 4 of 11 from 3. Like, he missed 7 threes, which, look, that's just under 40%. It's not bad, but like, I don't know. When everyone else is struggling to shoot the ball, you're hoping Hunter can bring you a little bit more. So it collectively, the team they're just not very good. I don't think it's any more. There's not that much more scientific to it than that.
Yeah, I don't want.
Oh, go on, Dan. Go on.
Sorry, I was just saying, like, people make the joke the team's really pasty, but I mean, like, Cooper Flagg is nasty, who's going to Duke, and it has nothing to do with him being white or whatever. I'm like, I feel like if Lynn Kidd had Poteet's rim protection skills, he would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
because he's athletic. He's like, we need athletes like that. But like, I don't know where. I don't get paid to make those decisions, so I don't know where exactly. That I feel like Mike Young just needs to tweak some things in his recruiting philosophy. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he already plans on it. We don't know.
Right. I mean, they've recruited athletes, right? Like Rodney Rice, like a spark plug athlete, Joe Bamisile. Yep. I mean, he is rocking and rolling at VCU right now.
His 4th or 5th school. Okay.
4. Found it. Hey, it takes all of us some time to get back.
Oh my gosh.
Darius Maddox had a little bit of bounce to him. Didn't really play defense, and he's doing okay at George Mason. Buchanan, who's playing at George Washington, he was a big guy with bounce, and it's like he's bringing them into the program. They're just not sticking, and they got to find a way to keep these guys, because they got a couple recruit. Like Jaden Young is a guy who he's maybe not a freak athlete, but he's got a little bit of something to him. And then they're bringing in this kid from Florida who a bunch of big programs are after, and he is a rim protector, can stretch the floor. Like, he's the exact kind of player they need. You got to hang on to him, and you got to use him. I mean, it doesn't help if he's on the bench.
I don't think the level of the recruits that he is recruiting or even signing,
they just don't get on the court.
It's retaining them. Yes, it's getting them on the court early, getting them some exposure, and then making sure they want to stick around. And like, whether it's me and you talking to Ed or Billy, like, whatever, like, we've all talked to like the basketball guys, and Ed he's the number one defender of the program, and Mike, and I do really appreciate that. But, there's a problem with retention here, and I don't know why that is. And some of it, Ed has said, like, listen, people that come in, they see Padula and Hunter that are like staked out in these 2 guard roles for the next 5 years. And they maybe they got scared off. Maybe Rice said, like, oh, my playing time's not going to be what it is. Like, I'm out. That happens. But at some point or another, like, there should be a culture that, hey, you can beat them out. You just have to stick around and work on your game, and maybe you'll get on the court in front of them. And like, that's what you're hoping for. Every time we bring in a top 50 guy like a Rodney Rice, like, you're hoping they beat out everyone that's on the roster and get on the court right away. And maybe they're just not the right fit for Tech. Maybe they're not that good as their recruiting ranking. I don't know what the reason is, but regardless, we can't have guys come in and go out right out the door as 4 stars and expect to be good. Like, it's very hard to do that. You need to develop.
It's like the opposite of what the women's program is doing. Like, Shaq came in as highly recruited as a freshman. Brooks even said, I think it was after the NC State game. I forget which after game it was recently, where he was like, yeah, we were going to redshirt her, and she was just too good. So we had her fight for playing time. She earned it. And now late in the season, she's out there making plays. That's what you want to be an elite program. That's what good programs do. And I just think for some reason Tech, the men's program has struggled with bringing guys into the program and getting them on the court. It seems to be, there seems to be something wrong with how they're developing these recruits, because the only guys that have really stuck are the first few guys that he got in the building.
Yeah, and he had recruited Hunter at Wofford, and then he followed him here, correct? I was thinking about I think I lost it, but yeah, the we're 62 in the net. Is there a chance that we could go on a run and no, we're not doing that, Sam?
No, I mean, there's mathematically there. I don't think there is. They don't have enough big games left. They have a bad loss now.
Yeah,
They're
that
3-7
Notre Dame
in
loss was
quad
bad.
one, and I understand like 10 quad one games is a lot, but it's like the old Daniel Tosh sketch where he was like making fun of people who said they were bad test takers. Like, oh, you just don't know information. Like, when you lose to the good teams, that probably means that you're not worthy of playing for a national title, right? Like, so it's. I think they're a bit unfortunate with the roster this year. I think they have a high ceiling, obviously. Like Iowa State and Boise State are very good teams. Clemson is playing better now, but the floor is, it's kind of an unacceptably low floor for year 5.
And we've just never quite figured it out. Like there was a point when we won our ACC championship a couple years back, before that ACC title run, that was, people can call it fluky, whatever they want to call it. We were playing really well leading up to that. And that team found a chemistry, and I was kind of waiting for that. And for whatever reason, it just has not come this year. We have UNC on the road as a quad one coming up. That might not be pretty. And then we have Pitt away. That's also a quad one opportunity, but it's, we need a miracle to go to the tournament. Go ahead, Dan.
I don't know is the talent on the bench just not good enough, or does Mike Young just not trust them? Because you brought up Carolina. If you've watched how Hubert Davis has done it the past couple of years, he was running like Caleb and RJ like 38 minutes a game, and they weren't winning games. And then it was like this year he finally started to like play some bench players, and I think he's running like 8 or 9 kids, and they look a lot better than they have. They're still inconsistent, but they look better.
Yeah, and obviously there's a different pool of talent that UNC is working with.
That's absolutely true.
However, I do agree with you and have felt that at times we don't play enough guys. I have felt that way. And when your backup point guard, because Rodney Rice left, your backup true point is a freshman in Rex Steiner, who is going to probably be good, but it's one of these things. We've seen Mike Young again and again. He doesn't want to rely so much on freshmen. Even Sean Padula as a freshman, he showed flashes. He didn't play a whole lot until later in the season. And so I don't know, but I think there will be a reevaluation into their recruiting philosophy and how they handle things in the building to retain. And we can talk about NIL because that's a part of this, and resources are a part of this. And that's something that Ed will also always point out, is that the resources that we're currently putting towards football and Triumph and all that kind of stuff, that's not really happening. The women's program is sourced significantly better than the men's in terms of like a national scale. And so that some things might have to change there. And that's something when Buzz Williams was here, he demanded a lot from the administration in terms of resources. I think that's pretty well known, and it's out there if you want to go find it. But that's maybe that needs to happen.
I mean, if you think about it in the landscape of NIL, can you name somebody on the men's team other than Hunter Couture that has the level of personality that Georgia and Liz have to be out there in the community, like getting these NIL deals and getting some money?
Other than Hunter, no, probably not right now. But if they played better, that changes,
Also true. Yeah.
Have they just tried playing better?
Well, I think now, like, you're at the point now where,
and I don't know if this is right, but I think the reality with NIL is, like, you don't have to have a good personality if you're wet from 3.
Also true.
Like,
because you don't need to have a podcast like to warrant NIL. Like, the girls are great because they have a podcast to show that personality, but you don't necessarily need that.
Right. And it's the reality of the economics of men's basketball and football. Like, people will pay for performance. I don't think they're not going to do that for other sports. Like, a men's soccer player we're not paying a men's soccer player to come to Virginia Tech. Like it's just not
Right.
happening. Right. So I think I understand the NIL conversation, and yes, I think Tech probably is lagging behind in basketball, especially compared to what they're doing in football, which is clearly the main focus right now. I mean, clearly. At the same time, like it's not like you're losing recruits to big time schools, right?
Right.
Like you're losing them to George Mason and George Washington and stuff. And how much you don't need to pay Sean Padula to have him play more under control. You develop
True.
that, you coach
Yes.
that. So
Yeah.
I understand the NIL conversation, and that's very good, but I think it is also a separate conversation to how the team is playing right now and the talent that's on the roster.
Yeah.
If you were going to play the young guys, now would be the time, right? See what you got.
It would certainly seem, and I mean, the way to put a shot across the bow to some of the older guys, like, listen, man, it wasn't pretty last week. Let's try something else. But
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to something. Let's have some fun with Dan here. I wanted to pick your brain about your show, Tales of the TerrorDome, your VT fandom, and just some random stuff as well. And you've been hosting Tales from the TerrorDome. I think you called it TF. Do you use the F or is it just TTD?
No, I just usually do TTD to keep it simple.
Okay. You've been doing that for about 3 years. And when you started podcasting, I believe your show had a different name and maybe an additional host. Is that correct?
It did. Yeah. Tales from the Transfer Portal.
Okay. And how did, what was were you just trying to interview just people all around the country, just Virginia kids? What were you thinking?
So, yeah, originally it was kind of like it's going to be, tech leaning, but, I was going to try to capture the whole landscape of college sports, really. And it started to do okay. And then I interviewed Rashid Ali, who was a massive running back in college football. And that episode did awful. And I was like, damn. I was like, okay. I was like, so people just want to hear about tech. And then I went to, it was before Boston College 2022 home opener. I was sitting at the bar and I was talking to Jeremy Counts and Bill Roth and a couple of people. And they were like, maybe you should think about changing the name. And I was like, then 3 weeks later, I think it was Tales from the TerrorDome. Because I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lean in completely on just tech. Like occasionally I'll still I had I was bringing on no context college football, like all these people like that. And it did okay, but nothing like the numbers when it was like a tech guest or former tech athlete. And then,
And you had a co-host, and was it Joe Rogers, the video game running back from our national championship run, was your co-host? And
it was.
What a niche community we've created here.
That was a funny time.
A podcast named after that one time another podcaster played a video game during the podcast.
Yeah, so the thing was, I would be in Blacksburg, networking, shaking hands, kissing babies. And I'm going to say it because Joe knows it. I'd be out there fighting the good fight, and he'd be on Twitter throwing grenades. And I would be like, dude, what are you doing? And then eventually, I guess he just found a spot with Vito and Drift. And I went solo, and I think it's worked out for both of us.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, Joe is currently a member of VT4L over on another Virginia Tech podcast feed that kind of started as a culture podcast with Don V Fridays, and they've transitioned into going tech. People want to hear about tech. That's just how it is. And obviously, your switch over has been great for you. And TerrorDome, it's a good name. I love the name of the pod. And you essentially do all interviews because you are a one-man show. Like anytime you bring someone on, it's more or less an interview. Some of them are more conversational, like when me or Grayson are on there, we're kind of just having a back and forth. But you talk to a lot of real guests, as in players and coaches and whatnot. Of the staff members of our football staff you've gotten to meet, what were your impressions of when they came in? Did you sense after the Fuente years and you see Pry come in and they retained JC and all that, did you sense that we had something good here with this coaching staff?
Well, so we hired Pry, and I didn't really know who it was. And then I obviously you do your Googles. And then what really impressed me was he immediately showed up on the drill field to throw snowballs. And I was like, okay, he's different than what we've been rolling with. I thought that was great. He's a PR master, but not because he's finessing us, but because it's actually like what he believes in and who he is. And I work in Northern Virginia, and I get a lot of Penn State people that come through, and they would always be like, "Oh, you're a Hokie fan? I know Brent Pry. He used to be my neighbor. He helped us shovel the snow. Oh yeah, we've drank Grey Goose with Brent Pry. Like we've done this, we've done that. Like just gushing about this man." And then obviously you've seen the press conferences and just the conversations I've had with the staff. I've never felt like one way or another, they jerked me around. Like they've always been very real and straightforward, which is what I want. So that's how I operate. So that's how I want to be operated with.
You have something, Sam, or
I was just my only thought was it does seem to be the perfect amount of used car salesman that it takes to be a college football head coach. Like there needs to be a certain amount of act and persona going on to do this ridiculous job that they're asked to do. And he really has started to figure out how to balance the two really, really well, and how to be the fundraiser, the rah-rah guy, but then also is starting to figure out the X's and O's, starting to figure out the roster. And I think, when he first got here, it was all the connect with fans, fundraising, rah-rah. And I don't know if they were totally X's and O's ready for his first season and roster-wise ready. And then started to figure it out last season. And maybe that Marshall game, like maybe in a few years we'll look back and be like, that was the kick in the pants that had them all figure it out, because it does seem like they're really comfortable being the Virginia Tech coaching staff. They're very comfortable representing the university now. They seem to have figured out those levels really well.
That is something if I could ever interview Pry, like that would be at the top of my list, is like what happened between Marshall and Pitt. I want to know, like, did you go into the coaching room and just raise hell? Did you just say, guys, we're close, like just keep doing what we're doing, trust the process, whatever? I just want to know like what happened in that week to figure out how our team changed so much. And maybe, we've talked to a couple of the players on the national championship stream, Sam, and like they were kind of like, no, we just kept doing us. But like I want to kind of get a little bit more truth to like what went on that week.
Yeah, do us but better. And it kind of seems like what it was, and they did just kind of figure stuff out. And like Dan, like you said, they have a level of honesty to them that is really refreshing. Almost, you don't get that a lot in sports. And so I think everything from Brent Pry coming in, and like I said, I don't think they really understood the roster limitations until they started playing games last season. But I give him a lot of credit. Not a lot of coaches would do it. He got in front of that podium and said, "We don't have enough good players." And, he said it all season. He said it this off season. He said it at the beginning of this season. He said, we aren't at the level talent wise that we need to be at as a program to compete for championships. And so I give him a lot of credit for that. Not a lot of coaches would have said that.
Yeah, he would be more forthright in some of the press conferences, like we were too vanilla, or like he would be critical of the offense after games in that first year and stuff. I did want to follow up with you, Dan, on the football staff, because I just was curious, how did you kind of first make contact with some of those guys? Was it just like sitting at the bar at PKs and they roll in, or was it like you knew someone who knew someone? Like, how did you start chatting with some of our coaches?
I feel like, mainly it was just being in the right bar stool. Basically, like, I'm trying to, like, Travis Wells helped me out a lot. The new SID. He's very good about, helping us, the podcast community, get interviews and stuff. And I connected with Cheetah, and then I interviewed Cheetah, and then I saw Cheetah after it's like a basketball game last winter. Is when like it really started to pick up, and then I saw them at PKs, and he like motioned me over, so they like introduced me to everybody.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Then I was like, okay, cool. Good to meet you. I'm Dan. Love y'all. I'm gonna go back He was like, nah, you gotta stay. He's like, talk. And I was like, all right, cool. So then, just networked the room and like hung out and had beers with like Pry and JC and all them. And now I just run into them all. And it's just like, they're familiar. So it's, like that's their bar. Like, I mean, you go in there, like that's where all the whole AD athletic department goes to PK.
PKs.
So basically just like being around,
Mhm.
I'm starting to have to introduce myself less, which is a weird feeling. But yeah, it was definitely peak, like just being around town, like showing my face, like being at everything.
So with all those interviews that you've done, and I don't know how many episodes it is now, but
Over
you pretty
100.
much
Yeah.
record like every week. Is that right? Is it just about
Yeah,
every week?
I put out every week.
Okay. So you've had a lot of different guests. Was there a guest that like surprised you? Like someone that you went into the interview thinking one thing and then the interview ends and you're like, wow, I wasn't familiar with your game. Like, was there someone that surprised you after you interviewed him?
Honestly, Caleb Smith. I did the Caleb Smith interview and it went crazy. Like they asked him about it at ACC Media Day. Like I did not think he would have been the one that would have like blown the doors off, but like he did. I've had some. Who else? I did all women last year for Women's History Month, and I'm hoping to be able to do that again this
Oh,
year.
that's cool.
But she wasn't an athlete at Tech, but Katie Adams was really
Mhm.
fun. Like she
Uh-huh.
was a good conversation.
TSL,
Uh,
Katie Adams.
yeah, she was great. Taylor Soule, she was awesome. Kiana Trailer had her on KT. Yeah, man, it's just Cornell Brown. Like I figured he would be, but like all those older dudes talk, man. Like they
They got a lot of
like
things to say, got a lot of
yeah,
stories.
and I'm cool with that because it makes my job easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening. You've had a couple of really good interviews already in 2024. You had Mitch Gerber, you had
Mhm.
Colby Crawford, and Mario Kendricks this year already.
Yeah.
And I listened to your show like pretty often. I don't hit every interview, but I listen to most of them. And that Mitch Gerber episode was awesome. Like that guy, we joke about like Pry gets it. That guy gets it, man. That guy, I was surprised because I've only seen him on the Triumph stream of him doing an interview here or there, which is cool in its own right, and he's good at it. But like he's doing work for Triumph. Like he said that's like 1% of his job is doing the on air kind of stuff, and the rest of it is plugging away behind the scenes. And he just seems hyper focused on making tech really good. And so that was a very good interview, and you asked him good questions, and so that surprised me. It's in terms of listening to you. But like I remember when you had Allie Jennings on, that was a great interview. That was
Yeah,
one
I
of
had a
my
lot of
favorites
fun.
because he's so well spoken, and that's one thing I'm impressed. Like Colby Crawford was one too. Like he's a young kid. He's midway through college, and his interview, like his responses were so good and smart and poignant, and I was impressed. Like some of these people have like real talent. I guess that he's in media and that's what he wants to do, but it's cool to that's what I like about your show. You kind of have this style that it's different than ours. I'm very matter of fact and I do like takes here and there, opinions on what I think's going on at tech, and then inform. And you definitely inform, but you also make a point to ask people like about them as the person and what they do and what makes them tick. And I think like it's almost like a talk show. Do you kind of feel that way about your own show? Like, do you have like a style that you're trying to mimic or anything like that?
Nah, I feel like I've really just kind of like I don't know. Like I mean, I can't believe I'm on year 3, but like it's I don't know. It's just I try to keep it light, try to keep it comfortable because I mean, some of these people like Mario Kendricks, for example, like he's about to go through a whole lot of interviews with people he does not know. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like at the very least, it's good practice for some of them to get on a microphone and
No
talk about
doubt.
themselves. And I think we're in an era where people want to know the athlete, not just necessarily like that they're an athlete, And a lot of them have great interests. Like Ollie Jennings could have talked to me about fashion for 2 hours if he wanted to. Like the dude, he just loves like that stuff. And it's just you can kind of catch it like when people like really like fire up about. So like you can just see them perk up, and it's awesome. I kind of resonated Shannon Sharp when he was talking about Club Shay Shay in the Cat Williams interview, where he was like, I'm not like this media journalist. Like, I'm not saying I'm an entertainer, but if you're looking for like the real in-depth like X's and O's, like go watch, like Boundary Corner is probably your spot. Like they're really good at what they do. Or like go watch Tech Sideline or something like that, where it's like true journalism, in my opinion. Whereas I'm just like, I'm just going to ask you questions and I'm just going to take what you say as the truth.
Yeah, and it works. It works really well, and you're sharp with it, man. And that's I'm not trying to gas you up too much. I'm just saying I enjoy the show, and you got to.
Dan's just like keep it coming, man. Keep it coming.
Yeah.
No, I mean he's our guest. We got to treat him right.
Bill Roth told me I asked great questions, and I was like, I never need another compliment in my life.
Dude, I was so excited when we had Bill Roth on for the Natty. Like
he was awesome.
That was a high quality interview, and that leads me to my next question for both of you guys. I want you to answer this. What would be the ultimate interview for you of any and let's go with people who are living, not anyone dead. So someone who's alive today. And it can be football related, Hokie related, or not. And if you have two different ones because of that, you can do that. But Dan, give me one of your like ultimate interview choices.
Marcus Vick.
That's a good one. You going Hokie related? That would be interesting.
Yeah, Marcus Vick. I feel like he has a lot to say.
For sure.
Dan, you know how to get clicks. I'll tell you that.
That's right.
I'll go to Hokie wise. I think one of the star players we don't really hear from. Like I feel like nobody has heard from Brian Randall, or like guys like that, like Eric Green. Macho Harris was on the Suns. He was really good. I think some of those guys kind of get forgotten a little bit, and you try to bring back as many players as you can and like remember those guys. But there's just like some of those teams are so stacked that some of them just kind of like fans have forgotten about them. So I think
they weren't around in the age with all of the social media and all the media access that is now too. So it has changed.
Yeah, or like Lee Suggs.
Yeah.
Like that, like like stuff like that we haven't had in the age of Virginia Tech podcasting. No one has really talked to them. But if you were to ask any Virginia Tech fan over like 25 who has been a fan their whole life, like they know who Lee Suggs is. Like he's the guy.
You're right. I don't think I've ever seen Lee Suggs in an interview. Like I can't.
No, I haven't either. Non-VT like Jeremy Wade.
Okay.
If you don't know who Jeremy Wade is, he's
I'm not sure that I do.
he's British and he fishes and he's awesome. That's all you got.
Okay. Dan, do you have like someone outside the Hokie sphere that you would want to interview?
Yeah, 1,000. And don't bonk me because it's legitimately all about their sports knowledge. But Kay Adams or Joy Taylor. I think
Kay Adams is great, man. I love Kay Adams.
I think it would just be through the roof. Like the energy.
Well,
the energy would be crazy.
If you had it on video, people would watch for Kay Adams for sure.
Yeah, I would do video for her.
I would super ready for like Sydney Sweeney or like,
yeah. I didn't even actually think about that aspect. If you're looking for clicks, bring on a beautiful woman. That would.
Well, I don't know how good Sydney Sweeney would. I mean, I'm sure she's entertaining. Like, I'm sure she's interesting.
Dude, she was on Hot Ones. It had 1 million views in 24 hours.
Yeah. No. I know, but I meant like the level of the Hot Ones was great. Yeah. She handled those wings really well, actually. I do enjoy that show. But speaking of like, I had Darren Evans on, and that was rewarding because nobody had heard from Darren. It was hard to find, and then it was just great to hear from him. And I think he like really appreciated like being back on the scene. And I got him hooked up with Dwight a little bit, and they were able to get him back on the alumni email base and stuff. So,
sweet, dude, that's awesome.
But go ahead.
Maybe the best performance in Tech football history.
Darren Evans, so 200. What was the yardage total? 250? Was it
252?
Yeah.
And Only one touchdown, which I don't know how he ran for 252 yards and only scored one touchdown.
He didn't have that breakaway speed, but boy, could he bring it in the hole. That's for sure.
Oh,
For me, I feel like Frank is obviously an easy choice from the Hokie sphere aspect. I know Billy and Pat got to interview Frank a few years back. Pry, I'd love to interview. But from just college football royalty, like Nick Saban, I would love to interview. That
Sure,
would
he'd be
be
great.
at the top of my list. And
he's going to be so good on College Game Day.
oh,
He's going
God,
to be
yeah.
so good.
Amazing.
Herbie, Fowler, and Reese Davis. Like those are like Reese Davis is like one of my idols. Like I love his balance of takes and delivering the information. I think he does that really well. Fowler is a freaking legend, and I've always just enjoyed what he does. And Herbie is still at the top of the broadcasting industry. So I kind of went broadcasters and coaches, but I don't know, like there's musical artists and stuff like that. Like Billy Joel would be a cool interview. Like there, I don't know. I'm a big Billy Joel guy, but like, I don't know. There's a million people you could choose, but from if I'm sticking with college football, like Saban would be pretty legit. All right. Well, regardless, Sam, you do a nice job at the show, and you do always hit me up or like let me know where you're at if we're both going to be down in Blacksburg or something, and even if we're in JMU, because me and you actually hit up the McAfee show during that weekend, and that was fun, man. I was on my way to Blacksburg at the time. We hung out for a few hours, and you're always like, I think it was with Mitch. You were like, "Hey, Mitch, I have an idea for you," and it was like a college game day for Virginia Tech, like basically getting a desk and a table that's Virginia Tech people that you would interview on game day. And like that is similar to what we did with our spring game preview panel last year, where we had a table of Hokie podcasters and journalists. So amateur journalists, I'll say, whatever you want to call us. And it was a blast, and we plan on doing it again. And I know Billy Ray is working out some of the final details on our bar and our location. And I'm going to connect with him this week and make sure we get those set up. But I definitely want to get the word out as soon as possible that, Dan's going to be joining us again. Sam will be down there for the spring game, and we're going to do the preview panel yet again at a local bar in Blacksburg. And I cannot wait for that. It'll be probably like 11 a.m. the day of the game. Dan, you going to be ready for that?
Oh, always ready.
I love it, dude. Yeah. And hopefully I would feel bad not inviting everyone back, but I do want to get some different voices in there too, like mix it up a little bit. And maybe we could have a conversation about format and how we should do it this year. But it will be a blast. And that's just going to be a little taste. And maybe we could keep doing that for more games down the line or something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But I think that's going to about do it. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Because we're about an hour 20 in, and I think we can call it.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I'll plug the website. We have our first softball recap article is going to go up tomorrow night. Baseball preview, we're putting the finishing touches on. They start play this weekend. Softball team looks like a unit. They look really good. Baseball team is going to be a lot of fun. They have some question marks and they have a really tough schedule, but they have a lot of really good players as well. So excited for both of those teams. And we're going to start spring football coverage on the website here pretty soon. So sonsofsaturday.com/VT.
That's a spot. Well, Dan, what do you got to plug over there? Tell people where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at visionary_season, SZN. You can go to the swvashop.com and click on the TerrorDome collection and get you some TerrorDome merch if you so choose. Make sure you go see my guys at Benny's down there on Draper in downtown Blacksburg. Get yourself a big slice. That's always fun. You hit Tots, you circle back around at 1:30, get yourself a slice, go home, make it a good night,
Right.
or however you choose to do it. But yeah, shout out softball. They got hosed. That rule is crazy, but
there's a reason for
great.
the rule. I understand people don't like it, but like that's
I thought you said they got hosed.
No, they got hosed. They got hosed. No.
No, I got correct. Yeah, like it hit me a second later. I was like, damn. No, that's funny, man. But yeah, Diamond Sports firing up. I'm ready for that too. Make sure you hit up 2Deep on Twitter. It's at 2DVT and also at 2DVT on Instagram. Trying to get our Instagram numbers up as we head into season number 10. Thank you guys both for joining me tonight. And that's a wrap. Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.